Welcome to the raw and uncensored Ambitchious Podcast. During our time here together, I will be instilling all of the strength, power, and determination you will need to use the very stones thrown at you to build your ultimate empire. We will redefine the word bitch from the derogatory to the acronym being in total control of herself. So let's adjust our crowns and prepare to live life ambitiously. Yeah, here I am, the original HBIC, Katie motherfucking Boyd. And on today's episode of the Ambitchious Podcast, we are talking to my good friend, my soul sister, and my ambitious business mentorship client, Christine Renee, who is the owner of F3 Collective. And F3, if you're wondering what that means, it means 50 plus, fierce and fit, based in Whitman, Massachusetts. Christine is an absolute powerhouse, and she helps women over the age of 50 release weight and reclaim their vitality by tapping into their zodiac signs, energy, healing activations, and mindset shifts. Her unique approach blends spirituality, energetics, and transformational tools to help women feel fierce, confident, and vibrant. Now, I'm only 44, so I'm not 50 yet, but I know for a fact that Christine reads women that are not just over the age of 50 because she actually did a pretty intense reading during this podcast for me. I know a lot about esoteric stuff, astrology, all that happy horseshit, but this totally blew my mind. It started to shift my mind to help me look at my fitness from a very different perspective. She's also going to go through the whole entire zodiac sign. So I'm an Aquarius. So you may be another zodiac sign and you're like, oh, I don't want to hear Katie's Aquarian craziness. But let me tell you, she's going to go through everything and is going to expand your consciousness. And you just may listen to this podcast and totally shift your mindset around health, wellness, weight loss, and all of the other things that go along with it. So let's get ready to learn how astrology and energetic healing can be game changers for your wellness journey. Without further ado, let's dive in today's episode with Christine Renee of F3 Collective. Christine, I am so grateful for you being here, and you are going to blow people's minds all across the globe. All the ladies that listen to Ambitchious, I bet you $1 million that they've never even thought about what you're going to teach them today. So thank you for being here. Let's get into it.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So we've been working together and we've known each other for a really long time. And when you started talking to me about this Divine Essence Bioprint situation, I was like, what the fuck is that? And then when you started schooling me on it, I was like, why does no one talk about this? So can we get into like what that is first so that all of our listeners can kind of like get a taste of what we're going to be talking about today?
Sure, absolutely. So a Divine Essence Bioprint is really truly who you are as a person and how you're made up. But we're looking at our zodiac sign in relation to our whole personality, our mind, our body, our motivation, etc. But then what I do in specific is I take all of that and we look at what your struggles are with weight loss and how we put the two together. And it's called the Divine Essence Bioprint because divinely, right? Well, that's when we were born. And the essence of who we actually are. And then the bioprint is the makeup, right? So it's all of who we are and how we see ourselves. Like, honestly, we know who we are. We've lived in this body for 50 some odd years, right? I'm 51. And we still don't really get the true essence of who we are until we basically can see it on paper. Like some people need the paper, like they get it. They know their signs. They know their ascending sign, their moon sign, whatever. They know those, but they don't understand how it really affects us and how it affects our struggles and what we've done in the past, et cetera, and how we move forward.
Mm-hmm. And everyone in the astrological sign, all 12 signs, every one of them are going to keep their health, wellness, movement, weight loss, etc. They're all going to have it differently. They're all going to experience it differently.
Correct.
So So when I think about that, and I've been in the wellness industry for 25 years, when I think about that, I'm like, God, I wish I had Christine in my corner when I first started in this industry, because we as coaches and trainers, and I don't do this anymore because the more that I learn, the better I get at what I do. But I think about like, wow, I would coach people so differently if I knew, oh, okay, this person's a Taurus and this is how they need to be coached.
Yes.
And I can't like shove this thing down their throat thinking, well, this is what works for me, so it's got to work for you.
Right.
So
right.
Everyone has their own different thing.
Yes, absolutely. What I have found over, really studying each sign is that some of the signs really can't handle rigidity. You know what I mean? They can't handle the schedule. They can't handle you need to meal prep on Sundays and you need to do X, Y, and Z. They can't do it. They're just like, no, stop. So they need more flexibility in their schedule. They need that fluidity,
So interesting. So you actually did my chart.
I did.
So let's walk people through. So let's just say people are like having a struggle with their weight.
Yes.
They've tried everything right there. I've been keto. I've done Pilates. I've been a vegan. I did carnivore. I worked out with the, freaking CrossFit. Whatever. Right. And nothing is working for them because they're obviously taking cookie cutter advice that kind of spans everybody. So when someone works with you because they're struggling with this thing, walk us through the steps. So like, I want to work with you. How do I do it? And what happens?
Sure. So first and foremost, I do want to say that the eating healthy and going to the gym are still factors, right? We still need to have those things, but understanding all of these underlying things that make us up and our motivation and our personality and how we react to things is really important. So like for you, the very first thing I did was I run your astrological chart through a program that I use, and it prints me out a report that's usually 25 plus pages. Yours, I think, was like 31. So, oh my God, what?
I'm complicated, Christine. I'm complicated.
You're complicated. You're one complex woman. No,
I am.
But that's the first thing I'll do. And the reason for that is because I want to find out the 4 signs that really are going to affect you and your weight loss struggles, right? So we're going to talk about your sun sign, which is the first major sign. And then we'll talk about your moon sign, and then your ascendant sign, which is different than your sun sign, and then also your Chiron. And let me just give you a little bit of background, which each of those are.
Yeah, tell me.
I just wrote this down so that I could have something better to say here.
Most people, Christine, they just know like I'm an Aquarius. I'm
exactly.
They don't understand like what's my moon sign and what's my ascending sign. And how those things work together. And the Chiron, as we know, wounded healer.
Yes. And they all affect us so much, but your sun, of course, is going to be the major thing that is affecting your life. But so your sun's really representing your core identity, your ego, and your fundamental personality traits, right? So your ascendant sign is then also known as your rising sign. It's like how you perceive others. And it represents really like your core identity and your inner motivations. So that is also just as important, right? But then you have your moon, which that's going to be more of like the emotional sign. That's going to be where it's going to offer you insight to really like your subconscious, your feelings, and how you actually react to things. And then the Chiron, like we said, is your wounded healer. And that really is, that can affect you, especially like with childhood traumas. So like if you've had things that affected you in your childhood, then the Chiron is where we really want to look. Right. So that would be the first thing I would do. I would run your chart. I would look at all 4 of those signs, but I would mainly read for you regarding your sun sign. So then we would have a Zoom meeting, and I would, speak with you briefly to figure out like, what are your real struggles? What have you been dealing with? Maybe what are some past traumas that you've had, in the past, that may be affecting your weight loss. And once we do that, then I would do like a reading for you, basically like a psychic intuitive reading. And we would go into depth on what those traumas and what those, issues that you're having are really affecting you and how, and what they're stemming from. Right. So like when I'm reading you, I'm delving into either the past or maybe something current or something like that. I had a past client who she was having issues. I believe she was a I had a Pisces. I was doing a reading for a Pisces, and she was really having issues struggling on being not seen, right?
Mhm.
Having real issues with not being seen. And this stemmed from some past trauma in her life where she had been sexually assaulted, and there was, lots of issues like that. So she was trying to hide, she was really, really trying to hide. So when we delved into that, I could give her strategies and how to move forward with weight loss struggles when you're trying not to be seen, right? You're trying to hide, you're trying to protect yourself, you're trying to gain weight so nobody's paying attention to you, nobody's looking at you. Yeah.
Make yourself.
I had those same issues.
So when people try to gain weight when they've had trauma, because you see this a lot of people who are extremely obese, because I've worked with that demographic, within my wellness company. Every time I speak to them, and I don't do what you do, but I do, obviously a lot of discovery when I first start working with people, 9 times out of 10, they've had some kind of either sexual abuse as a child or some kind of physical or true serious narcissistic mental abuse by a caregiver or a parent. And I have noticed over the years that they will try to put this like weight on to protect themselves from anybody thinking that they're sexually attractive, because if I make myself really big and people don't want to do that to me, then I'm safe, even though that's not true. But in the subconscious mind and also in the energetic mind, that's what we do. So
I think it was, and I don't even know if you know this story, but I think it was when I came to Bitchapalooza a few years ago. We were doing some sort of healing, something, and that was what came to me. I mean, this was like just a few years ago. Like it really just resonated with me that's why I was holding on to my weight for so long, is for protection. Because I remember when, I grew up in California, and I remember when I'd be walking down the street and you'd have all these guys catcalling and whistling, and you're like, oh my God, like, please, I don't even want to be seen. Like, stop.
I'm 11 years old.
Yeah, right. You're just a baby. And it's ridiculous. So because of that, and because of other things, going through my life, it was just a huge protection thing. And I was like, no, I need to gain weight so I'm not pretty. I'm not, this skinny little thing that guys are going to catcall and, trying to, attack me and, you know what I mean? And be all, happy to meet me, but, which is fine and dandy. But I was protecting myself and just trying to keep myself at like this heavier weight just to keep that from happening.
Oh, interesting.
It's so
you
weird.
all the time with the people you work with, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. Okay. So when you run the chart and you look at the sun, the ascendant, the moon, and the Chiron, you obviously, and you are psychic and you are intuitive, right? Yeah. Which is so cool, because some people just do the astrology, but you have all those other gifts, which I love.
Yeah.
Then from there, do you develop, and obviously we're going to talk about my stuff today, which I love, I'm ready. But then do you develop some kind of like a plan of action for them? Like, okay, here's what's up. Now this is how we fix it.
Yes, we have. So I do also, after running the chart, I also provide a PDF that's got basically what your struggles would be, in addition to the ones that you've talked about, and some strategies on how to fix, the struggles for your sign. Mm-hmm. And I provide you with that. I provide you with the recording of our Zoom call so you could go back and listen to it, over and over again. And because there's so much data, especially with like 20 some odd pages of the astrological chart, plus the hour-long recording, right? There's a lot that we delve into. Then I will also do and while, if you want to do this today too, we can do an actual healing and clearing, which is pretty cool. So we do that on our recording as well. And then I also provide 7 days of Voxer support afterwards. So I don't know if you know what Voxer is, but it's just a little app that, you can go back and forth with people on. But they can ask questions. I can answer. I can send a clearing. I could send a healing. I could do whatever is necessary over those 7 days, because this is so much information. It's almost overwhelming, right? Because like I said, you've been living in your body for 50 some odd years or 40 or whatever, right? But it's suddenly you're like, oh my God, this is why I do this. And you're like, it's written on paper. This is why I do this, and it's scary, Right?
I always tell my clients, like, when you know better, you have to do better, right? So like, you have been given this information. Now it's time to learn from it and then evolve.
Right.
And then
Exactly.
and really heal yourself and put this stuff to bed, because I know for myself and so many of my clients that I've coached, tens of thousands of people over the last 25 years of my career, it's like I help them, but then they just keep going back to the same thing, and it's like insanity, right? Isn't the
Right.
definition of insanity doing the same thing
And
over and over, expecting a different result?
exactly. But yes, and that's where the healing should come in, right? So part of the clearings and the healings that should assist to heal some of the past issues, traumas, struggles, whatever. However, if you're not moving forward and you're not continuing to do the thing, then you're just going to end up right back where you were, and then you just have to clear it again. It's like a constant thing that we have to do to move forward, right? Like we can hear this all day long, but unless we're taking the steps and we're moving, we're really not going to get anywhere.
Absolutely. I'm so excited. And I also know that before we got on this podcast today, that you'd like to also just give a little strategy for each sign, because my goal for having you on this podcast is for anybody out there in Ambitchious land who's been struggling for a really long time with this. Like, this is the person to go to. And so my goal is to have you talk a little bit about a strategy for each, but obviously everyone's strategies are going to be more to the person, right? Because everybody, even though like they may be a Scorpio, but you don't know, everyone's ascending and moon and Chiron are all different. And also their struggles and their traumas and their life contracts are different. So everybody's going to be very specific to each person, but there's overall themes and strategies for each sign, which is cool. Because also, and guys, if you want to follow Christine, go down to the show notes. All of her handles on Instagram, Facebook, etc., are all going to be there, because she also does this on her Instagram, where she gives people like, okay, this is what's going on. This is your sign. And these are maybe some things to change it, which I think is so cool and so much value.
Thank you. Yeah, it's fun. And I'll give you some general strategies. I wrote these down too, just so if I'm looking at my computer, if I look like I'm looking at my computer, I am.
I love it.
So we'll start from the top. So it goes Aries through Pisces. So Aries is basically embracing structure, however, leaving room for adventure. So giving yourself more of like a really clear structure with your meal plans, etc. However, allowing for some of that spontaneity and whatnot to still come in, so you can mix up some of your routines. Because once we're on a strict structure, it's not necessarily like a good thing, right? Like we all want to have some freedom of movement, and we can't be tied down too much. So that's Aries. Taurus. Now Taurus is funny, because Taurus, you really need to make gradual changes. So as much as you would like to just balls to the wall, let's get it done, Taurus, that's not how you're going to really work. It's something that you need to have like a slow, almost like molasses style, movement through making your changes, whether it's food, whether it's your workout routines, etc. You need to make those changes slowly. Gemini, it's committing to small and specific goals rather than just this overall huge goal, because for Gemini, they are such an indecisive sign that they have trouble. Like if you put too many things in front of them, it's like, oh my God, what do I choose? What do I choose? What do I choose? Mm-hmm. Right. So when everything becomes overwhelming, because, suddenly you're like, okay, we got to do food. We got to, do a meal prep. We got to go to the gym. It's like, no, that's just, it's not happening.
Yeah, they end up with like analysis, right? Because they're like, there's too many things, and then they do nothing because they're like, I can't choose.
Exactly. So we don't want to be stuck. We want to give ourselves small, specific goals so we can move forward. So that's Gemini. Cancer, building self-care into your routine. So what's interesting about some signs, and Cancer is one of them, is the fact that if you're not providing yourself self-care on the other end of all of this, because we're moving, right? We're overwhelming ourselves with the movement, with the food, with the doing this, that, and the other. If we don't build some like downtime for ourselves, then we are going to, again, like we were just talking about the Gemini, being overwhelmed with too much stuff. And then you back off. And again, you don't do anything, right? Leo needs to transform emotional eating into creative action. So now what's funny about that is, and what an overall kind of theme is for a lot of us, is emotional eating and also rigid schedules. So I have found more emotional eating through all of these signs than I ever really realized. Like, I didn't even know that I was an emotional eater until I was doing something big, and I was like, oh my God. And I was stressed, and I was like, holy banana pants. I ate a whole bag of like peanut M&Ms and I couldn't stop. So I was like, oh, I guess I'm an emotional eater. I had no idea. It took me about 40 years to figure that one out, but whatever.
Join the club.
So their emotional eating for Leo, instead of, trying to eat when you're emotional or bored, try and move yourself into something else. So like move yourself into like a creative space, like maybe painting or reading a book or, something like that. So basically taking their mind off of, the eating and moving into an action.
A creative distraction.
Yes, a creative distraction. For Virgo, they're going to embrace the progress and not the perfection. So Virgos have a tendency to be perfectionists, right? And one of the things with them is that if they're not paying attention to like what the actual progress is, then they're going to feel like they're getting nowhere. And then they're going to feel like, okay, well, I've done nothing, so this isn't working, so forget it. Right? They're just going to give up. So they need to be documenting their progress so that they can actually realize they are making it somewhere and things are moving along.
So measuring it, really documenting and measuring. I love that. That's so smart. Because I have a lot of, I don't know why, but I coach a lot of Virgos. Yeah. And they are so like meticulous and pragmatic.
Yes.
So they have to that's like part of their sign. So that's what's going to really help them level up.
It'll help them stay on schedule, like on track, right? It'll help. And then it'll also then help give them motivation to be like, oh, okay, well, I see that I've lost a pound each week, but it doesn't feel like I've lost a pound each week, right? So I'm like, you don't want to give up if you lost 5 pounds, but then you realize you did lose 5 pounds. You're like, oh, this is awesome. I can keep going. I feel better, It's like that. Let's see. So that was Virgo. Libra is making decisions simpler. So again, they are an indecisive sign. And for them, their indecisiveness will also keep them really stuck. So for them to make simple decisions. So make simple decisions for food, make simple decisions for their nutrition, right? So make it just, 3 things on the plate instead of 5, right? Instead of making this huge, complex, beautiful dinner, making it a very simple dinner or a simple meal plan or a simple workout schedule so that they can stay on track. Scorpio, which is me, is it's focusing on my health and not perfection. So I am also a perfectionist. And what's funny about this and this is really funny. So this is, when I was making this PDF, it talks about letting your motivation shift from appearance to wellness. And it's really funny because now I'm 51 and this has really changed over the years. I remember when I was a kid, it was all about being the next, swimsuit model on Sports Illustrated, right? And there was no workout plan. There was no health and wellness. It was just, let's get skinny. Let's lose weight. Let's go to Jenny Craig, to wherever. And the health and wellness wasn't the journey. But now that I'm 51 and now I'm like on the other side, right? It's like, oh, well, I really do need to pay attention to health and wellness now. This isn't any longer about me being skinny. Of course, I want to be skinny and, fit into some, size, whatever jeans, right? But that would be wonderful. But no, now it's about my longevity and am I going to be around for my grandchildren and am I going to be able to walk straight? You know what I mean? Things like that. So that really actually resonated with me. Here I'm putting this PDF together. I'm like, oh God, that's so smart.
So true. It's so true. I love that. That's such a huge shift too.
It is. It's very interesting because I think as you get older, you finally realize that is now the goal, and when it used to be just, let's be a skinny bitch, Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And I used to want to be a skinny bitch too. And I was a skinny bitch, but I was a skinny bitch for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Right. And it makes it difficult. And then it's definitely not good for your health, especially depending on what you're doing, right? If we're starving ourselves, that's not the way. Like, then we're depriving ourselves of everything.
Of course.
Right? Next is Sagittarius. And for them, they are one of the flexible routine type. They cannot do the rigid schedules either. So they have to have very loose like guidelines. So it's not, I can only eat X amount a day. It is really like, okay, I have to be very full. I can, let's say, and I've actually said this to clients before. I've said, you know what, you can't be rigid. You have to allow yourself some flexibility. You have to say to yourself, okay, you know what, maybe I'm just going to do my workout and my eating perfectly 3 days on, 2 days off.
Yeah.
3 days on, 2 days off, right? You have to give yourself this flexibility. If you're trying to be so rigid, it's not going to happen. I don't care who you are. You can be like the most, perfect willpower person, but no, that's not 99% of us,
Agreed.
So that is Sagittarius. And we've got Capricorn. Capricorn is integrating relaxation into routine. So again, with them, it is also like maybe bringing in some mindfulness activities instead of, still that rigidity, but keeping the flow and that mindfulness there. Because when they are going balls to the wall, they can't keep up, right? Again, it becomes overwhelming and they really need to just relax and throw some things into their schedule that is going to be mindful, right? So they can refocus. Aquarius, obviously you're an Aquarius, address emotional eating through self-observation. So this is where you as an Aquarius, you're a very objective person. So because you're so objective, you really can look at all of the things and be like, okay, well, this just isn't working. This is working. This isn't working, right? So allowing yourself to say, okay, I get emotional when I'm trying to do this over here. So you know what? We're not going to do that anymore. We're just going to back that off and I'm going to focus on this over here that's practical. And, I'm able to do this. I'm able to make a game plan or a meal plan for myself with objectivity rather than, listening to, your family members complain about their food and weight loss and whatever, and that causes emotion. And then you're like, oh, okay, now I'm going to go make my meal plan. No, that's not going to work out because now you've brought this emotion into it, and you really need to stay away from that. Or, let's just say you went shopping and you just tried on 15 clothes and they didn't fit and you felt like crap in the dressing room. That's emotional, right? That's going to cause stress and trauma. Yeah. That's not the time to meal plan. That's not the time to be objective.
You're like, I'm going on a 40-day water fast.
Right. You know what I mean? Like it's sad. We are all very emotional creatures and it's just difficulty.
Yes.
It's just difficult. And then our last is Pisces. And for them is really staying connected to their why. So if they don't remember why they're actually doing this to begin with, like our health and wellness journey compared to, being a skinny bitch, they're going to forget where they're actually going. And then they'll just lose their track and their way.
Wow. Wow. That's so interesting. It's so cool. Everyone's so different.
They are. But I'm telling you, in looking at all of these, there really is such a tie-in with the emotional eating because we're all emotional creatures.
Right.
And then this rigidity, we just cannot handle overwhelm. And I think especially because of the society that we live in and the Western culture and how we're so attached to, our phones and we need to, we need that constant intake of information. It's just too much. It's too overwhelming. And then we also want results right now, which we know is not going to happen. Especially if we want it to stick.
Absolutely. You just hit something very specific that it just like sparked in my mind. Like when you were talking about like the social media, the phone and whatever, have you noticed, and I know this it ties into what we're talking about but I think that this is going to help a lot of people where have you noticed like on social media, like you could scroll, like, let's just say you're watching reels on Instagram or TikTok, or, you're watching TikTok videos, then you're scrolling. And then one person's like, I healed my autoimmune and I lost 80 pounds doing carnivore. And then you're like, I should do carnivore. And then you scroll up again and it's like, I just eat fruit. And then you're like, I should just eat fruit. And then the next thing you're like, I should be keto, or I should be a vegan, or I should be like paleo and all this stuff. And then what happens is you get so much information that literally you do nothing, it paralyzes
Absolutely.
you because you're just like, what is the right thing for me?
Yeah.
And I think that's why what you do is so incredible, because you're coming at the health and the weight loss from a totally energetic, astrological, divine way, instead of just being like, this is the 3-dimensional thing.
Right.
You got to lift heavy weights and eat protein and take these supplements. And it's like, yeah, but I'm not made like that.
Right. And none of us are made like that. Like if we were made like that, we wouldn't be so affected by when there's a full moon or a new moon, right? You know, the world goes absolutely insane when there is a full moon. So if we were really 3D people, right, we would not all of a sudden have mass chaos on a full moon.
Amen. Absolutely. Everyone loses their shit.
We're so affected by everything, like our whole emotions, our energetics, our whole life gets turned upside down sometimes when we've got, you know, Mercury retrograde going on, or what is it now? It's like Pluto retrograde. You know what I mean? Like, so
oh yeah.
And it's suddenly when you realize that, you're like, oh, well, no wonder. No wonder I'm acting like a crazy psycho.
Agreed. I love it. I love this. I can't get enough of what you're saying. It's just, it expands my mind, because, you know, when you've been in the wellness industry for as long as I have, and you've very much subscribed to this one thought process.
Yes.
And you say like, oh, well, when I teach this, like say my 28-day protocol on my app, you know, it's like so many people do so well on that. And then there's all these people that don't. And then I used to look at myself as like a bad coach. I'm like, what's wrong with me that these people can't accomplish this? And it's like, because they're not freaking aligned to the energy of that thing. They can't do the rigidity. This is way too much information, where someone else is like, oh my God, I can't get enough of this. This has changed my life. And I would always blame myself. Like I was the bad coach or I was the bad trainer. And it's like, no,
it's just learning how they work and how they function, you know, and it's not even you learning that, it's them learning that. So then they can, you know, it's not like you can't take that A28P and make it your own. You know what I mean? It's all going to work. And if you are the person that can't do the rigidity, then you go, okay, I'm going to do one day, and then day 3, and then day 5. And then, you know what I mean? Like, it's okay. We get to do whatever we want to do. We can make our life however we want, but I think we forget that often.
Yeah, you know? Totally. 100%. Oh my God. So, all right, let's go into my chart, because, you know, I'm just like dripping. I'm dripping with excitement.
You're so funny.
I'm also scared because I'm like, oh God, everyone's going to know that I'm really a maniac, but I'm sure.
No, you know what? You always show up so true to yourself that anything I say is not going to be new information to you or anybody else. I promise you.
Appreciate it.
So in running your chart, your sun is an Aquarius, which we obviously talked about. Mm-hmm. Your moon is a Leo. Your Chiron is a Taurus, and your ascendant is Cancer.
Mm-hmm. So, I knew all of that except my Chiron. I didn't know my Chiron was in Taurus. How interesting.
Yeah, that's so. What's funny about that is that then you have to realize that even though your sun is going to be really your ruler, right? That's going to give you the main strategies for weight loss, you're still going to have to take into consideration some of these other things, right? You're like, oh, okay, you know, the Chiron being in Taurus, you know, that's going to be different than Aquarius, right? You know, so having to really consider some of those things is different. So what I would normally do is we just got on the call and I would run the person's chart, and I would ask you to go ahead and tell me some struggles that maybe you've been dealing with regard to weight loss, and you know, anything that has been bothering you, or things in the past that, you know, you think are related to weight loss. If you know.
So yeah, girl, do I know? Yes, I know.
Have you met me?
And because you and I come from a very similar background, like you already kind of probably know this about me, but I'll say it for the people out there in Ambitchious land. The people. I think a couple of things. So, what I am struggling with right now, and have been for a while, is that I think that I always worked out and moved my body and ate a certain way. I did not care about how I felt. It was all about the aesthetics. Because from a very young age, I did pageants. I was always judged for the way I looked. And then as I got older and diet culture became more of a thing. Remember, I was born in 81. So like I came into like my full blossom of myself and really competing in the Miss America and the Miss USA system in the late 90s, where, you know, everyone was thin as a pin. We had the low rise jeans that you couldn't have 1 inch of fat falling over. Right. And we used to wear our thongs coming out of the back of our jeans. I don't know if you remember that horrible era.
Yeah, I do. I do.
And I also grew up in the time where it was like, you know, they would call like Britney Spears and Jessica Simpson fat and they were size 2, you know? So I was like, well, if those bitches are fat, then what am I? And also competing in the Miss America system. I remember, you know, and this is really I'm going to be rude, but I don't give a fuck because you know me. Like these women who looked like they were trolls living under a bridge, who were like probably 150 pounds overweight, were telling me 12% body fat, you really have to keep working on your fitness. Right. So that was very difficult for me because I was just like, am I living in an alternate dimension of reality?
Right. Because you don't understand. How can you be telling me that? Like, that just makes zero sense.
You know, 3 hours a day in the gym, 7 days a week, weighing every morsel of food that went in my body, you know, doing really crazy shit to myself, from like steroids to, you know, all kinds of stuff. Right.
Yeah.
And then as I got older and I started moving away from, like when I retired from actually competing in pageants, as you know, I started coaching everybody. Right. So then what would happen is I was like, well, I don't have to look the way I used to look anymore. I'm a coach now. But then that's not true, because people will say, do you want to be coached by a fat coach?
Right.
Right. So even though I was coaching the people now, I always had this impending doom pressure of like, I have to always look a certain way. Yeah. And I remember like when I was younger and I was coaching, you know, for the Miss America, Miss USA, Miss Universe pageants, I remember like not wanting to go to events because I didn't want people, maybe I had gained 10 pounds and I didn't want people to be like, oh, wow, she really let herself go. Like that was always like a fear of mine. And now that I'm older, I've healed a lot of that, but I still struggle with working out and eating a certain way to look a certain way and not for the way I feel. And as you know, because I'm 44 now, so I'm in that like perimenopause place where I'm starting to go through the change. And now like your hormones get screwed up and you can't do you can't use the old tricks you used to use anymore to look the way you look. Right. So everything changes, you know,
it's not easy to lose that same 10 pounds.
No, where it used to be like, oh, I could 1 week, I could just close my eyes, snap my fingers and like do it. Yeah. And now that my hormones have shifted. So I think for me, the struggle is really like, how can I switch from, wow, the movement and the food makes my body feel good and nourished and healthy and high vibrational, from it doesn't matter how I feel, put the sweat, remember the sweatsuits, the like actual like sweat sauna sweatsuits. I would like wear those like and do like through 2 hours of cardio, like just crazy shit. And I also was trained by professional bodybuilder men who had no business coaching like a 17, 18, 19-year-old girl. Right. So I still have that like old kind of psychotic energy where I'm always like, and then what I do, and I know that you probably know this about me too, is like, I am like, okay, no, I'm eating for health and the way I want to feel and the nourishment, and I'm moving my body in very gentle ways. And then because I don't get the instant gratification as I used to get from like starving myself and doing 3 hours of cardio and all this shit, that then I'm like, no, I have to go back to the old way. And I find myself in that hypnotic rhythm of like, I know what I have to do for my highest, greatest good as this evolved being, but there's always that part of my brain that's like, this isn't going to work. So just go back to the old way and beat yourself up and terrorize yourself and just like, you know, make yourself feel less. So that's like my biggest struggle.
So while you were talking, when I read and when I listen and I'm connected to you, I am the type of person that I know, right? So I'm claircognizant, cognizant.
Yep.
I'm clairvoyant in the sense that I can see, like I either see words or pictures or whatever, but I also clairsentient, which is the feeling. So when you were really talking about that, there's a couple of things. The most that was coming up for me was in your heart chakra, right? So for me and for you is that it's almost like a true, and you just tell me when I'm hitting on things.
Of course.
It's almost like a true lack of love for yourself and your body. And it's almost like, it's so hard because of course you love yourself. That's not the case. It's loving it's loving your body, like because you had to, right? And I say that in quotes, you had to abuse it so much. There was so much lack of love for it in the past that it's been really, really hard to kind of come back and have that all encompassing, overwhelming love for your body now. So when you go to work out, in addition to then those blocks coming in. So now you've got this lack of love for your body, and then you have the blocks coming in of what we were talking about with the people telling you that you need to lose weight. It's like, well, number one, I need to be in control of myself. You don't need to be telling me anything. And just being in that position, right? Being in the whole pageant world, like it was ridiculous. It's different now, but totally, it was absolutely ridiculous in the past. Like obnoxious, right? But thank God we've moved on a little bit beyond all of that stuff. But in the past, it was really rigid. It was stringent. You couldn't step out of line. You probably even being weighed, definitely people were 100% judgmental. Like there was swimsuit competitions and they were judged on their body. We're not talking on athleticism or health and wellness, or we're talking like, oh, you're fat. Sorry, you don't get to compete.
But also, by the way, like in a national stage, they would put your numbers on television.
Oh my God, I don't remember that. Thank God, how awful.
It would be like the judges like numbers would go like 9.8, 7.2, 7.8.
Oh my God.
Yes. Could you imagine?
That's dramatic. That is traumatizing 100%.
Absolutely.
So you have these people that are telling you that you need to do things, and you've got this lack of love, and then you've got this trauma, right? This trauma from these people constantly telling you, and then you constantly trying to do it, and then this lack of love, and all the three things like cycling together. So then when you were on the other side, that was then also why you struggled, because you were having that realization that now you're that person on the other side telling them that they need to look good and do this X, Y, and Z.
Horrible.
When, maybe they can't do that. Or again, now we're traumatizing them. Not that you were doing it on purpose. That's not what we do. We're doing everything with love.
That's what you do. Yeah.
Right. And we were doing it with the knowledge that we had then, not the knowledge that we have now. Right. Now we're totally, we've grown so much as humans. Right. But back then it was so different, so now, like you said, now we're in the present time and you have more love for your body, but I still think I feel like there's a lot that still has to be worked on, and we can do a clearing in regards to that and some healing surrounding your heart and the love for your body. But then also now in the present time, you want to revert back because like you said, we are all trying to, now we're on this health and wellness journey, not to look like a skinny bitch. Not to say that all skinny people are bitches. Just want to put that out there, okay?
We just use the word bitch. It is the Ambitchious Podcast.
Right. I'm not being jealous over here. I'm just saying, right? We are talking to the people that struggle with weight loss, right? So that's who we're talking to. And I've been one of those people.
Same.
So it's just that it's difficult, and you bring yourself right back to where you were because it's a trauma. Right. Yes. It is a trauma that has to be cleared and healed. So unless we actually go clear and heal the love for your body and the trauma that was surrounding, hearing judgments from others, maybe not necessarily constructive criticism, right? We were hearing judgments from others. This wasn't constructive criticism in the past. That that is where you're coming back to. So that is where where the struggles and the trauma lie within your body. So then to move forward, even though you're doing the gym, you're eating healthy, you're doing all of those things, unless we heal and clear those things and continuously work on them, because it's not like we snap our fingers and it's done. It's a continuous process. Then you'll still have those feelings and you'll still be stuck in quotation marks.
Mm-hmm. Something else came up to me when you were saying the thing about the heart chakra, which you are 100% like on point. So I'll tell you that. The other thing that came up about the heart thing was when you were talking, in the back of my mind, I started to realize like every relationship that I ever had with a man was always contingent on the way that I looked. So like I would date a very specific type of person, like bodybuilders, fitness athletes, because, when you're in the gym all the time, that's kind of who you hang out with. That's your posse, and I will never forget, like one time I was in the gym and I was dating this professional bodybuilder, and he was talking to another friend who was also a professional bodybuilder. And they were like in the corner of the gym talking. And I knew that they were talking about me because they kept like looking at me or whatever. Yeah. And I had just really started dating this person, and I was really in shape, but I wasn't like ready for competition. There's that difference. There's like regular, healthy, in shape, looking good. And then there's like competition weight, competition body, right? You just to compete too. Yeah. So I'll never forget like them. And I was like watching them talk about me. And then my boyfriend came over and I was like, oh, what were you talking to so-and-so about? And he was like, oh, you don't want to know. And I was like, no, tell me. And he goes, well, he said like, you're a 7 right now, but if you lost like 15 pounds, you'd be a 10. Yeah. Nice. So instead of me, oh, and by the way, neither one of them were 10s.
Right. Of course.
Let's just put that out there. But how fucked up was I at that moment? Instead of being like, fuck you, motherfucker, and never talk to this person again, what did I do? I went and lost the 15 pounds. Right. That was like, oh, will you love me now? Am I good enough for you now? It's because you
desire the love. You want it to come in from everywhere. And if they're pushing you away because of stupid, simple little things like weight, like, are you kidding me? Like, that should never happen. But you're trying to like get it somehow. You're not getting it from yourself. So you're trying to get it. And it's just going to, compound the issue,
100%. And now it's so funny. Again, to kind of pontificate on what you're saying, even though I'm like happily married and my husband, like he and Matt, like, even if I was like literally 600-pound life, he would be like the enabler that takes me outside and like washes me with like a hose. Like he's
what a good man.
Half of me is like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But then he's like, oh, thank you for that unconditional love. Because God put him in my life to help me heal that. Yes. But even to this day, like sometimes like when I feel fat or when I feel like I'm not like on my game, like sometimes I'll actually look at my husband and judge him like, what's wrong with you that you're attracted to me?
Right.
Why are you so fucked up that you want to like, it's almost like, you remember that movie White Chicks with they're in the, she goes, oh, throw Free Willy back in the pool. The girl's literally size 0.
Yeah. That just shows how stupid we are because, as smart as we are, we're dumb because like, why would we ever think that? Like it's us. It's not about anybody else. Like, why would we even, because we're the best things in the world, right? We're our own humans. We're the main character of our own story. Mm-hmm. Like, why aren't we living like that? You know? Yeah. And but why are we questioning why somebody would love us? Like,
absolutely
mental.
But then when we trace that back, like energetically and spiritually, emotionally, and also like trauma, like through the trauma loop, I even think to a child, because I think that, remember you were saying you had that like epiphany during a thing at Bitchapalooza? I bet you $1 million it was inner child healing meditation.
Probably.
That we do.
Probably.
Because when I started doing that work as well, I started to think back to my childhood and I was like, and this is my own experience. I'm not saying that this really happened. I'm just saying, because sometimes like my mom and dad will listen to the podcast or my family members will be like, that was not what happened. And I was like, I know that was your experience, but my experience in my body and my life was different. Uh-huh. So when I've done that inner child healing work before, and I've done a lot of it, I'll also go back to like my childhood and think, okay, when did you feel the most loved? And when did you feel like the most important and paid attention to? And it was always when I was doing something, succeeding.
Mhm.
When I was like, winning a competition or, getting a good grade or getting like the lead in like a play at school. Like
Right.
I feel my personal self that my love was very conditional growing up. Like you
Mhm.
had to be good to be loved. You had to be successful to be loved. And as you know, because this is what you do for a living and what I do, it spills over until your adult life. So it's maybe not like
Absolutely.
oh, I won the best, picture competition at school. Now it's like money and success and power and fame and
Yeah.
Instagram likes. And so
Absolutely. Or even for the regular person who's just working at a job, they want somebody to tell them they did a good job, right? Then they're looking for that when we
the
don't need that,
validation.
right? We
Yes.
don't need the validation, but now because of all of that occurred prior, now you're looking for the validation because of everything that happened in the past.
Yeah, 100%. So you are right on the money with the heart thing. Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah, this is something that I know this on a very deep level too. And I think that sometimes like I can help someone with that, my own self as a coach,
Mhm.
and help people as a coach, but sometimes it's more difficult to do it for your own
Absolutely.
self, because sometimes I think we're also scared to go to those places because like, what if we go there and we try to heal this and like we don't come out the
Yeah.
same way, which is
Yeah.
very
I
scary for
agree.
people to do the healing work.
Anytime there's any sort of change on the horizon, right, that you think is going to happen, whether you're making the change or whether someone else is making a change for you, it's scary, So I get that 100%. And like, that's why I think some people just don't do anything. They just want to do the, status quo, and they just stay there because if they change anything, they're afraid it's all going to fall apart.
Yeah.
But then what's really going to happen if it falls apart?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. You're not going to die.
Yeah, you're not going to die. You're not going to die.
Not
Yeah,
going to die.
absolutely.
You might go through some transition and it might be upsetting and whatever, but you're not going to die,
Right. Absolutely. So when you talk to the people like you just did, so you have them first, they say, okay, like, what are you struggling with? And then you listen and you tell them, okay, I'm hearing this, what you just said to me. Then how does like the all the different signs in your chart come in? Like, how do you integrate those?
So when we look at, so you're Aquarius, I've got the Aquarius. So I have free PDFs that anybody can download on my website. And this one is the Aquarius one. So in each one, there is the challenges that you pretty much struggle with. And then at the bottom is strategies for weight loss. So what I would look at when when we're talking about, we already did the your own personal struggles, and now we would look at the struggles of an Aquarius, right? Yeah. So some of the challenges are favoring mind over emotions, independence and resistance to conformity, right? You don't want to conform to anything. You really want to be your own person.
Really?
Needing alone time and space, and a tendency for detachment and aloofness. And those are just the titles, right? There's actual, descriptions underneath each one. But strategies are, and there's about 5 strategies on this one. Creating personalized, flexible routines. That would be for Aquarius, because we don't like to have those, stringent routines. It needs to be flexible. Embracing community on your own terms. So that would be more like you needing to maybe work out with a partner, or work out with friends or a group, or maybe go to group workouts, group classes, something like that, because you do like to be alone, right? As an Aquarius, you do like to be alone, but you also love community. So because of that community piece, you would be more successful in working out with a group, or maybe just joining a community like you have here. And you do like the A28P community, you do it all together. Like that is where you will strive, right?
Yes.
So that's a strategy for those that, don't have a community like you, but in, finding their own community, maybe even joining a group. Okay, we're doing a weight loss, 21-day weight loss thing. Let's all do it together, and the one that I had said earlier was addressing emotional eating through self-observation. Oh my God, I can't talk. Observation. So being more like objective and using that journaling and whatnot to actually write your stuff down and then really go back and look at it and be objective about it. And you have the ability to do that. Like me, I'd probably look at it and be like, oh, everything looks fine. Right. Yeah. But you as an Aquarius can look at it and be like, okay, eating 5, Reese's peanut butter cups today was probably not the best plan.
Yep.
And I'm like, I'm a Scorpio. Isn't that okay? Isn't that fine? I'm an emotional leader.
Totally.
But I want to.
Same.
And then setting meaningful and future focused goals. So like for you as an Aquarius, that would be something you actually have to do as well. So writing down your goals, knowing that like by the end of this month, let's say, or, we're at today, but the end of the month, say, okay, I want to lose 5 pounds by the end of the month. So giving yourself small, goals that you can actually achieve, not these, goals that you're like, okay, I want to lose 80 pounds by the end of the year. Well, that's fine and dandy, but unless you're actually making a small step, for yourself, it's too much for our brains to actually, see an 80-pound goal. It's much easier for us to picture a 5-pound small step, right? And then your goal can still be 80 pounds, but know that you need to break it down, and make it a little bit
smaller, like more digestible chunks.
Yes. So, and that's for you as Aquarius. So like when we're talking about food intake and gym time, like, what are some of the things with those strategies in mind? What are some things that you think that you could make changes?
Definitely. I think what I've been doing wrong against my sign from your advice is like, I will be like, by such and such a date, I will be this weight or else.
Right. Right.
Maybe it's just like me writing in my journal and being like, okay, your goal this week is to release 3 pounds, to eat, perfectly on your meal plan. Maybe have one day where you go out and have a treat or something like that. Cause it's also a thing where I'm like, until I lose this weight, no treats, no alcohol, no, that I make these like super rigid goals because again, that's how I was coached and that's how I was trained.
Which is not going to work for you. You need that fluidity and that flexibility.
Yeah, definitely. And I have noticed that one thing I have been doing is, I've been teaching a lot of yoga at my studio and I love to do it with the girls. Like, even though I'm teaching it, I'm doing it with them.
Absolutely.
Where most teachers teach and they don't do.
Right.
Where I'm actually showing them. And for me, it's like, okay, I get a workout in and I'm helping these people. And it's fun because we're all like laughing and joking around. Yes. It's like a really fun experience. But then if I try to go home and do that, I'm like, I don't want to do this. I'm going to go watch Real Housewives.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And that's because of that community piece for you. You really crave that community. So that is more beneficial to your mind and your body than, just trying to, of course you can still work out alone, but it's more beneficial for you to have that community.
Yeah. It's so much more motivating to me too, to be with other people and cheer each other on. And like, I don't know, that's just how I've always been. But then to your point, sometimes I do have to like be alone because that's when I kind of recalibrate my energy.
Yes.
Which is that balance. But I always say like, no, that's mean. You should always be giving and you should always be showing up. And then, as you know, that's how we get burnt out as coaches.
Right.
Too.
Then you have zero time to recharge and you have to have that recharge and you have to have that alone time. It's very important for you and your sign to actually to do that.
So interesting. This is so cool and such an awesome way to like shift your perspective and look at things in a totally different way, Yeah. So if the fixed sign is your Aquarius, then how do you also kind of calibrate with like your ascending and moon and like what? And I obviously when we first started today, but like, and then how do like those come into play? Because that's
I would I pulled up all of those PDFs as well so that I can tell you. So when we're talking about the sun, that's going to be your fundamental personality, right? Your core identity, like we had said previously. But your ascendant sign is going to be how you're presenting yourself to the world, but also like your how you interact with others. So, and that was
Cancer
for you. Your ascendant sign is going to be Cancer.
Yep.
So when we're talking about strategies for us for Cancer, so there's a couple of things here on this one. Again, self-care, building that into your routine, reframing your inner narratives, I think that resonates most with me for you, but then also the asking for support when needed. So that would delve into that whole piece about interacting with others and your impressions with people, right? So that's your ascendant sign. That's going to be where you need to take those into consideration too. So because you are such a strong person and you're that Aquarius, you do need to have some of that support. So that's going to be your interactions with others, but it's also going to be your community, but it's also going to be your support. So, they're all going to kind of like mix in to each other, but that's what I would take from the ascendant and the Taurus for you.
Mm-hmm. Because it's funny that you said that, Christine, because one of my biggest issues is I look at asking people for help as weakness, even though I'm a coach, right? Like I'm a coach and I'm like, ask for help. You need a coach, blah, blah, blah. But I feel sometimes, and this is just my own malfunction energetically. And like my mind is like, if I ask people for help, that means I'm not good at what I do because I'm such a great coach. I should be able to coach myself through this on my own and not ask anyone else.
But we know that doesn't work. That doesn't work. We know we can't coach ourselves. I mean, we can a little bit, right? But yeah, we really do need support from others. And it's really, really important that we do ask for it. And that's where you're going to come in with your ascendant sign in the Cancer. And that's how I think that's going to be something that you need to bring into your whole daily, weekly, monthly, yearly process.
Mm-hmm. Because like if you came to me and said, Katie, can you help me with this? I would never look at you as a weak person ever. I'd be like, yes, Christine, this is amazing. I'm going to help you. But where the fuck does that come from that I think that asking people for help is weakness? Like, and I think a lot of it have to do with my trauma, like being hyper independent from being parentified as a child and all these different things.
Absolutely.
But I think that's the healing is actually being like, okay, this is fucked up. And to actually really also heal this, all the stuff that you do, the clearing, amazing. But to heal it on like a daily basis, like maybe it's like, okay, asking people for help in these realms that I'm lacking or I'm not feeling so strong about. And it's okay to have a team.
It is. Okay. And I think what we forget to realize is that, and I think we went into this a little bit before, but is that you have to look at this stuff. You can't just exist, right? You can go day to day and just, year to year and just be you. But if you want to change and if you want to lose weight, and really have it stick and stay off, and you want to make changes in your own personal life, you have to look at things. If you're not looking at it, nothing's going to change.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's our main problem for why we yo-yo diet is because we didn't look at it. Right. And so then we go lose the weight. I've lost the same 80 pounds. God, I don't know, 10, 15 times over my 51 years. You know what I mean? Like, are you kidding? But it's because I haven't fixed the problem. Right. If I fix the issue, whatever I'm struggling with, whatever the trauma was, if I'm clearing it and I'm looking at it and I'm moving past it, then is when I'm going to make a change. Then is when I'm going to be able to keep the weight off. And then is when I'm going to be able to move forward clearly, and cleanly.
Yes. And then what about Leo moon? How do you
so the moon? Yeah. So the moon, let's look at Leo. So with Leo, there is also 5 strategies. So making your health journey a stage for self-expression, seeking community and leadership opportunities. Of course, that's coming up again. Focus on the joy of movement and play, transform emotional eating into creative action, addressing pride by celebrating growth over perfection. So for you, pride by celebration, growth over perfection. So I think that comes into play. So the last one resonates the most with you because it's not saying that you're, a prideful person, right? It's not like you're like, walking around like a peacock, right? That's not that. It's that you want you automatically want things to be done like that, right? Like we all do pretty much in society, right?
So I'm really bad, Christine.
We all probably resonate with this one, but we want immediate change, right? We want everything to be immediately done. And when we're not seeing it, that's when we have struggles of, not, sticking to what we really want to stick with. And I think it's just maybe being mindful of that and how the moon sign Leo, because this is where our emotions are really, like, the moon is more emotions, right? So that is going to affect you emotionally. So understanding that it is not going to happen all right away automatically every time you snap your fingers, but understanding that it is going to be a process. So I think that's the one that really resonates with me, the emotions and the moon for you.
Yes. This makes total sense. I love this. This is just I just always tell people, the more awareness you have about who you are as a human, better, you can do better if you choose to, and just like hearing
Absolutely.
These things from you has already like put so many things in my brain where it's like, it's almost like you kind of, if you're really connected and I'm like you, I'm very connected to energy and spirituality and all that kind of stuff. But if you're really connected, it's almost like, these things on a subconscious level, but sometimes we need like that, like someone to say like, yes, this is definitely it. It just helps you go like, okay, not that we need validation, but it is nice to have that kind of confirmation.
Absolutely.
If you will.
It's an additional support, with an additional support, it's like going, oh, okay, well, yeah, of course. Right. Like you knew it before, but now you like really know it, because you've heard it or, whatever the case may be.
Yes.
And then your Chiron. So your Chiron is the Taurus.
That little bastard. Chiron.
I know. And this one, so this is more like your wounded healing and like maybe some childhood traumas and whatnot. So with this one, there happens to be 6 strategies for weight loss. And again, all of these are PDFs that you can just download like off of my website. But this one is, let's see, you've got gradual changes, right? That Taurus needs gradual change, incorporating nature-based activities, which for you, I do know you love to be outside and whatever, but establishing a routine, focusing on inner security, embracing the practical and tangible, and balancing indulgence with health, so I think 2 of those can really affect you, is balancing indulgence with health and then the gradual changes, because of course, like we were just talking about the, wanting to have more of like a flexible thing rather than have a flexible schedule or a flexible eating schedule also, rather than just these stringent things, at least allowing for some of that fluidity, because that will affect us better, right? More positively.
Huge.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when you say the indulgence, between the indulgence and what was it? It was indulgence
with health. So balancing indulgence with health. So
which is so funny because didn't I just say that to you, Christine? I was like, I was like, you cannot have anything fun, no alcohol, not even a kiss until you are that weight and that body fat, and then you look this way in a swimsuit.
Exactly.
Hello.
And we have to allow ourselves indulgences. We do, because there's nothing like, especially for me as a Scorpio, and I'm sure many other people, we just can't stick to something exactly and perfectly forever. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, go eat a cookie. I don't care. Eat a cookie, have ice cream, just don't do it every day and every 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So true. Because I'm always, and I'm
a cookie.
And I'm also like an all or nothing person. So when I am good, I am so good. And when I'm bad, I'm real bad.
Yeah,
real bad.
I do the same thing. But I mean, it really, and sometimes it is hard to realize that we need to balance that, but it is important. And it's especially important for you because that is coming up in your Chiron as the wounding, right? Like that's the thing that is going to be big for you.
I love this. This is so good. And it just puts so many things into perspective. So thank you for this. Is great.
Of course.
So then what is the last thing that you do? Because, let me say this first. when someone works with you and they do like this kind of thing, like what we're doing, like, so everybody out there that's listening to the podcast, pretend that you're listening to, like, you're a fly on the wall during Christine's session with me as someone who she's coaching. So then you would go in and say, okay, this is what we worked on today. These are the things that I'm going to help you release. Okay. But one thing I do know about coaching is people do something once and then they're like, I'm healed, right?
Right.
That was a one and done. So how after you work with someone the first time, what is like, how can they keep working with you to keep themselves, on a good program and keeping their mind straight, and then also just having that reminder of like what they learned so that they can keep evolving and growing and getting better?
So what I do provide the recording, obviously, afterwards. So they get a copy of our session together, so they can do that clearing or that healing again and again if they choose. But then we also have the 7-day follow-up for the Invoxer for any questions, any additional healings, anything that they may need over the next 7 days, because it is a lot of information. Mm-hmm. But it's also so much information that you really may need additional afterwards. Yes. So for the program that I have available is just a one-on-one session where it's $111 a month. And you are able to meet with me once a month via Zoom, but you also have unlimited Voxer that entire 30 days. So awesome. You have the ability to ask me any questions. We have the ability to meet, via Zoom if you want. I mean, Voxer is so good that you could have whole conversations. Do you know what I mean? Back and forth all day, every day for 30 days, of course. Weekends, and I will take those off. You know what I'm saying? But you'll have access to me, unlimited access, which is just amazing. And then we can continue to move forward, as far as they want to go and however long they need me for.
I love this. I love it. I think it's so smart, because that's the thing is people go like, okay, I did this thing. Now what?
Yeah.
And I love coaches like you that like are like, okay, I'm planning for the future with you too, because this isn't just a one and done. No. Healing is not linear, and healing isn't just this one thing and then you're healed and then like, okay, go like be your best supermodel, live your best supermodel life, because that's just not how it works.
Right. Plus, like me on my end, like I want to make sure that you're actually having some progress, right? Like I'm not just going to be like, okay, great, bye. You know what I mean? Like I have a care for you as a client, right? Like I want to see you succeed. I want to see that what we did together helped, So I really, really want to see that happen. So my goal is to assist you, and I want to get you to where you want to go. That's my success as a human, is enjoying the beauty and the feeling and the amazingness that the people feel on the other end, like when like last week I was getting so many Voxer notes, like, thank you so much that you're just such a wonderful, amazing human, and I'm like, thank you. I love you. Just to hear that is just wonderful. It's just amazing. So
as a coach, that's, I feel the same way as you, like as a coach, like there's nothing better in my life to hear and see someone evolving and like, hitting their goals and reaching their dreams. Cause that's what a good coach desires. It's not about the money. Yes, you get paid for what you do, as you should, because it's an energetic exchange. But really, it's like there's nothing more fulfilling in my life than to watch someone like reach their dreams and goals. I agree.
Absolutely.
100%. Absolutely. So then when you do these clearing things with people, do you focus on like what you intuitively got? So like, for example, you were like, okay, I see a lot of stuff going on in your heart. Then how do you facilitate that?
So what I would do, and we probably don't have time to do an actual hearing because clearing and a healing, because it's usually like 20, 30 minutes. It can be quick too, but what I really do is we will, do some breathing to bring ourselves back, to be grounded and open ourselves up. And I will basically walk through your body. We have our 7 energy centers, main energy centers, which are our chakras. And for you, because we were focused on the heart, I would probably go up to the heart chakra. But for you, I would also probably focus a little bit on the throat chakra, because some of those blocks, when we were talking about not being able to, love yourself, and then also not being able to like speak to yourself in the way where you can feel comfortable moving forward and not bring yourself back to those old places. We would need to, and you can hear my throat getting all affected right now.
My throat is getting it like it too. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I could really feel my heart too. It's like, it needs that space. And And I would walk you through a clearing, and I would basically clear all of the old ways of thinking out by talking about moving those things out, visually thinking about them moving out. I would use some air to bring in, to clear, to expand. I also have a tendency to use a lot of my hands. So I will, like, you would have your eyes closed. I probably wouldn't have my eyes closed, but I'm breathing with you and doing whatnot. But I usually have a tendency to move the energy with my hands. So I would move, like, the wind and the space and air, like in your heart chakra and in your throat chakra, and maybe even use the colors of those, with, green and blue, and just move those things along. We remove them. And then I'd also speak into you some really positive things about how much you are loved, and how much you do love your body, and you love yourself, and how many people are surrounding you that do love you, and all of those things. So I'd really speak positive things into you and clear some of that negative energy. And just, we would continue to do it. And it does take some time, because I want you to feel it, and I want you to to see it happen. And in clearings that I've done with other clients in the past, like, we come out of these and they're in tears, because there's something, that we've emotionally struck, that really resonated with them. And then I'd pretty much close you back up. I'd seal you all in, and, and ground you, so you're not floating away out there. And then I'd send you on your way. But that's, after that clearing, that's when you have to sit, and you might not feel it for a few days. You might feel it right away, like, hence the tears. But then that's why we have that 7-day follow-up, so that you can actually allow it to process, and you can feel your emotions, you can sit with it, you can journal, and it's a really amazing process.
I love it. That's amazing. I feel good. You didn't even do my clearing, but I feel like I'm clear, because just talking about this with someone who really understands, and plus you and I have been friends for years and coaching together for years. And, like, I just adore you. And I think what you do is so, and I'm going to use the N word, it's so needed in this day and age, because, listen, we've been doing the same shit over and over for years, like, lose weight and all this stuff. And sometimes I think it's so much more simple than what we all make it out to be.
Right. And I think that happens with a lot of our life. We make things way too complex when we just need to look at the basics. Look at the basics, figure out who you are as a person, and you'll at least gain some insight on how to attack some of the things you've been dealing with.
Absolutely. This is such an amazing podcast, and I know you're going to help so many people. So if people want to get in touch with you, obviously they can scroll down to the show notes, but they can also follow you on Instagram. They can also friend you on Facebook. And then obviously if they want to work with you, they can reach out to you through going to your website. And you set up do you do a discovery call with people first?
Or yes, if they want to. Some people, it depends on who the person is. Like, I'm the type of buyer where I just want to buy it. I don't necessarily need the discovery call, but some
you don't need to lubricate me to have me buy anything, honey. I'll buy it all day long.
Right. But some people want to talk and figure out how I can help them. And that's totally fine. So I offer those, of course, 30 to 60 minutes, discovery calls, whatever. And those you can just DM me on Instagram, or you can even email me. My email address, I think, it's so funny, I don't use that email address all the time. It's F3collective at gmail.com. It's 2 F3s.
Put that in the show notes too.
Yes.
Put that in the show notes.
Yes. And my website is f3collective.com.
Yes.
So
I think instead of doing discovery calls with people, you should just send them this podcast to listen to. And I think that they'll answer all their questions. Seriously.
Exactly.
Because honestly, if they just listen to this podcast, they're going to be like, yeah, this is what I need. And they should just go right into a one-on-one with you to tell you the truth. This was amazing. I always knew you were amazing, but like today was just like next level. And I just think that this is just so needed in this day and age. And it's coming at weight loss and health from such a different perspective. Yeah. And I think the weird out there shit is what actually works.
Right. Right. And the more we're connected with ourselves, the more we're going to assist ourselves anyways, so even if you gained nothing and you don't want to lose weight, you don't want to do anything, you just want to know what your signs are, fine. Message me. I'll tell you.
Me too. And maybe you can talk to people if it isn't a weight loss thing, just like how to have better self-care, because I think that that's another thing that plagues people. It's like people just go and go and go and go and go until they drop. And then they, and then we wake up one day when we're like 80 years old and we're like, what the fuck was that? Where did our lives go? We just spent all of these years people pleasing and not even knowing who we truly are and what we truly desire. That, to me, that's sad.
Yeah, it's so true. And like a woman that I just worked with, I actually worked with her on the opposite to actually gain weight because she again was so like traumatized continuously, even to this day, that she wants to make herself disappear. So she's like a little stick and she can't gain weight because, so we were working on, expanding her aura and all of that stuff. So she was very appreciative of all of that stuff too. So it was really interesting to look at it from the opposite perspective, but it was still amazing. It was amazing.
That's so cool. That's amazing. Yeah. Oh my God. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. And I know all the girls that are going to listen to this are going to just love it. And like I said, guys, if you want to work with Christine, which you should, go down the show notes and reach out to her, book a session just like this with her, and you will not regret it. I feel amazing. And thank you again for being here. And guys, if you felt like this gave so much value, send it to all of the people who you love. And in the meantime, don't forget to stay ambitious, and I will see you next Tuesday.